One evening, at the end of March 2022, a motorist takes Provincial Road 5 between Polline di Borno and Dezzo di Scalve in the province of Brescia, a region of Lombardy located in northern Italy. At the edge of a mountainous area, he spots several black garbage bags lying below a small parking area. This discovery immediately attracts his attention, as the bags, scattered on the slope, seem heavier and bulkier than simple trash. Intrigued, he decides to notify the Carabinieri, who are one of the Italian police forces. A patrol quickly arrives on the scene, secures the area, and finds that it is not an illegal dumping of waste. The bags actually contain human remains, specifically a female body cut into 18 distinct fragments. The officers immediately take steps to protect the scene, as the state of the remains and the way they are spread across several bags clearly indicate a planned transport, rather than an impromptu abandonment. The investigators examine the configuration of the site, note the presence of a rather steep embankment, and vegetation that could camouflage the bags for some time. They take multiple photographs, look for possible footprints or tire marks, and begin a preliminary inspection of the adjacent road to see if other clues have been left by the perpetrator of this macabre deposit. In the laboratory, the first forensic examinations reveal a significant detail. The different body parts show signs of freezing or thawing. Some of the flesh is still partially frozen, while other pieces show slight alterations due to the transition between cold and ambient temperature. For the experts, this indicates that the victim was not abandoned there immediately after her death. The hypothesis forms that there was a period of cold storage, possibly in specific equipment like a freezer. This finding is already directing the investigation towards a more complex staging. The Carabinieri believe that the act results from a calculated approach, where the perpetrator sought to hide the body in a little-visited mountainous area, while delaying identification through dismemberment and the removal of any recognizable part, such as the face, absent from the bags. Yet, despite the absence of facial features, the authorities have a major asset for identification. Several fragments of skin bear tattoos, ready to provide crucial clues. Due to these tattoos, which are colorful or unique, the investigators immediately decide to release precise descriptions in local and national media. The Italian press relays this information, calling for possible relatives of missing persons to come forward and inviting the public to contact law enforcement if they recognize any of these body art designs. Since the victim is evidently an adult, the search will not focus on a genetic file of missing children, but rather on a database of recent disappearances or statements of concern made in previous months. Simultaneously, the Breno Company, which is a sector of command for the Carabinieri within the province of Brescia, develops a very structured investigation protocol. The vehicles that circulated on Provincial Road 5 in the period preceding the discovery are recorded as much as possible, and the team starts collecting footage from surveillance cameras present in the area. The investigators rely on captures from potential municipal cameras, businesses, or private residences that may have filmed a suspicious passage, a loading of bags, or the unusual presence of a car in this abrupt sector, infrequent outside peak traffic hours. As the hours pass, the rumor spreads that this is potentially a particularly brutal criminal case. In the surrounding villages, the news spreads quickly, and some residents fear that a killer is roaming the region. However, the police remind them that there is currently no evidence indicating a connection to a serial killer, nor any other reported victims. The Carabinieri emphasize an essential point: the precision in the modus operandi, the use of freezing, and then the choice to abandon the body several dozen kilometers from a major city. This suggests that it is an individual who thought about how to dispose of the remains without leaving obvious traces behind. The tattoos remain the main clue, as any other physical characteristic is challenging to analyze. The investigators do not have the face or complete fingerprints. This situation increases the pressure to contact relatives of people matching the description provided. Meanwhile, teams multiply their analysis of each fragment of skin, each bag, and search for fibers or residues that could come from a home, a vehicle, or a refrigerated container. The growing role of the media becomes apparent in the days following the discovery. Italian news broadcasts and some foreign news sites mention the event and highlight the difficulty of identification. The Carabinieri then receive dozens of calls from citizens who think they recognize a body mark or who report the disappearance of a loved one. All leads are evaluated. At this stage, it is not yet known whether the victim is Italian or from another country. The province of Brescia indeed hosts a diverse population, but it is also a transit point for tourists and workers coming from other regions or abroad. Investigators maintain the utmost discretion on the progress of their ballistic, biological, and digital analyses, while reassuring that they are working tirelessly to put a name to these remains. 3. After a short period of uncertainty, the cross-referencing work begins to bear fruit. Several clues confirm that the victim is a young woman reported missing in another locality of Lombardy. The Carabinieri, now convinced of her identity, focus their efforts on her last circle of relations. They obtain confirmation of an address in the Milanese and discover a neighbor who is surprisingly cooperative with the police, while seeming both nervous and eager to give his own version of the story. He is a bank employee in Milan, whose name soon reaches the media. Yet, initially, no one imagines he could be involved, even though some elements of the investigation indicate a regular link between him and the victim. Gradually, however, the trail becomes clearer, and his statements do not totally match the phone records and testimonies gathered in the neighborhood. Several sources within the investigation suggest that the neighbor ultimately confesses to his role in the young woman's death, before detailing how he dismembered and transported her. The police do not immediately reveal the reasons, nor the exact manner in which the fatal scene unfolded, as the investigation requires methodical work to verify his statements and determine the existence of any premeditation. In the eyes of the public, the victim's identity now seems established, and the neighbor stands as the sole suspect. Yet, no one yet knows why this act was committed, nor what tensions or motivations could have led to such an extreme. The case therefore takes a radical turn. From a mystery of brief anatomical details, it evolves into a much more complex case, where investigators aim to expose the precise chronology and deep motive. As the population begins to associate this unknown face with a human tragedy, the media questions the underlying aspects of the relationship between the victim and this suspect from Milan. The continuation of the story promises new revelations, as the motivations, the exact circumstances of the murder, and the real reasons that drove this man to do the irreparable remain to be clarified. Carole Maltesi was born in 1996 in Sesto Calende, in the province of Varese, in northern Italy. Her dual Italian-Dutch origin quickly stirs curiosity among those who meet her, as she speaks 2 languages and from a young age shows an ease of adaptation in a multicultural environment. Her family lives in this area where Lake Maggiore and the landscapes of Lombardy offer a peaceful backdrop. She spends her childhood between the shores of this lake and a few stays in the Netherlands, where part of her family resides. Growing up, she develops a strong and independent character. She is already considering several paths for her future life, seeking a profession that allows her to quickly gain autonomy. As a teenager, she places great importance on her freedom and sometimes feels constrained in her small town. At the age of 20-something, she becomes the mother of a little boy born in 2016. This child, who lives mainly with his father, changes Carole's perspective on stability and time management. Despite the difficulties, she wishes to fully assume her role as a mother while pursuing her personal projects. When her relationship ends, she finds herself without true marital support and must find a balance to reconcile the custody of her son, her own aspirations, and her need for independence. This quest for stability prompts her to move closer to Milan. She opts for Rescaldina, a town located in the Milanese outskirts. From this geographical point, she can more easily travel within the region, multiply professional opportunities, and visit her son. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Carole finds herself facing, like many people, financial uncertainties. Job opportunities are becoming scarce, and she hears about the OnlyFans platform, which allows users to sell adult content directly to subscribers. She sees it as a quick way to make money while remaining free with her schedule and choices. Gradually, she becomes involved in this field and chooses a pseudonym, Charlotte Angie, to protect her privacy. At the same time, she seizes opportunities in adult film production. This approach opens up a world to her that she tackles with a certain pragmatism, seeing it as a way to make a better living than with a part-time job or a precarious contract. Carole is aware of the risk of stigmatization linked to such an activity, but she explains to her relatives that she mainly sees it as a means to achieve the financial independence that has been lacking for some time. At Rescaldina, she rents an apartment in a building where Davide Fontana also lives, a man who, at first glance, seems discreet. He is a bank employee in Milan with a passion for cooking, to the point of maintaining an online culinary blog. Initially, Carole and he are just simple neighbors who politely greet each other when their paths cross in the hall or around the building. Quickly, the conversation moves to various topics, and Davide shows interest in Carole's life, her projects, and her activity on OnlyFans. Little by little, he offers to help her, for example, by filming her or helping improve the quality of her video content. This friendly assistance transforms into a regular collaboration. Carole sometimes appears on screen, while Davide handles the camera and technical aspects. In some cases, he does more than frame or edit the videos, as he agrees to participate in certain erotic sequences at Carole's request. Their partnership, while unconventional for a typical neighborhood association, remains consensual and seems to provide Carole with logistical support for her activity. Over time, the bonds between Carole and Davide begin to go beyond mere professional proximity. Exchanges become more personal, and several subsequent judicial decisions will clearly mention that he has strong romantic feelings for her. Carole, on her part, displays a freedom of choice in her intimate relationships and lifestyle that contrasts with the expectations of some more traditional observers. She embraces this image of an independent young woman, confident in her body in front of the camera and in daily life. By her own admission, she doesn't necessarily plan to stay in Rescaldina for long, as her goal to see her son more often remains a priority. In discussions with her friends and family, Carole shares a concrete project: to settle in the Verona region. This city is at a reasonable distance from where her son lives with his father, and she dreams of making more frequent trips to fully play her role as a mother. She also hopes to find a better balance there between her online activity and the time she wants to spend with her child. According to later investigation elements, she seems increasingly determined to take this step and leave the Milanese suburbs for a simpler life in an area she considers more pleasant for her and her son. Several of Carole's closest people confirm that she talks about this move as a decisive step. Her priority seems to be the stability of her child, even though she knows she will have to deal with moral judgments related to her work in the adult industry. However, she embraces this path, convinced that her role as a mother is not incompatible with exercising a profession that, for her, remains above all an economic and personal choice. In this context, Davide Fontana experiences these new perspectives with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Being very attached to Carole, he fears losing her if she moves elsewhere. While he has already often proposed to accompany her in her endeavors or to stay in close contact, he dreads that she might definitively distance herself. Elements later revealed by the judges will show that he perceives this idea of moving as a total separation, even an abandonment of the complicity they had established in their daily life. However, at the time Carole realizes her project, nothing suggests a dramatic turn. For many, she is just a young woman who wants to reconnect with her parental duty while continuing to work in her own way. From the point of view of those around her, Carole remains friendly, open, and full of energy for this new chapter of her life. At the beginning of 2022, after filming at her home in Rescaldina, Carole suddenly stops responding to her acquaintances. Her friends and colleagues are surprised not to see her anymore in the building or in the places she usually frequents. She misses appointments and no longer visits her family, even though she is usually easily reachable. Yet, her phone continues to send out messages. On WhatsApp and by SMS, people regularly receive updates describing her as traveling abroad, mentioning a trip to Dubai to fulfill professional obligations. The rents for her apartment are still paid on time, which helps maintain the appearance of an active and mobile life. However, a few details eventually worry those trying to reach her. They only receive written responses, never voice calls or video conferences, to the point that some begin to doubt the authenticity of these exchanges. No one raises the alarm immediately, since this absence is not total on the digital front, and Carole had already expressed her desire to move more freely. Her acquaintances are still unaware that during all this time, she is nowhere to be found. In the meantime, the police in Brescia released to the press the description of tattoos discovered on a female body abandoned near Borno. It is then that a local journalist, Andrea Tortelli, notices a strange correspondence between these patterns and those of an adult film actress, known under the pseudonym Charlotte Angie. Comparing public images allows the identification of a strong similarity between the tattoos seen on the victim and those on Carole's body. He immediately contacts investigators, and very quickly, they confirm that the tightly wrapped body found is none other than that of the missing young woman. Once the identity is established, the investigation resumes in the Rescaldina neighborhood where Carole lived and produced her content. The police search her home, look into her relationships, and find that a neighbor, Davide Fontana, had played an active role in her professional and personal circle. Fontana appears very concerned, as he himself reported Carole's disappearance to the Rescaldina police station, presenting himself as a worried acquaintance for her safety. Authorities trace back the origin of messages sent from the victim's phone when she was already deceased. The evidence indicates that these communications originate from Fontana's environment, as he seems to impersonate her on social networks and via SMS. Investigators then confront this neighbor with their findings and summon him for questioning at the end of March 2022. Faced with the elements they have gathered, he finally admits to killing Carole and disposing of her body, while claiming it was an intimate game that went wrong. This revelation shocks the investigation, as Fontana transitions from a grieving figure to a central suspect, whose story must be meticulously verified. On the evening of January 10, 2022, Carole is at her home in Rescaldina, near Milan. She is about to participate in a recording that she believes was ordered by an outside client, unaware that this request actually comes from her neighbor, Davide Fontana, who operates under a fictitious profile. The shoot involves scenes inspired by bondage, a genre Carole is already familiar with, notably because she produces and sells various adult content intended for online platforms. She prepares just as she would for any other work session, follows the instructions provided, and welcomes Fontana into her apartment, convinced he is there only as a technical collaborator. Judicial decisions and investigation elements indicate that he carefully conceals his intentions, controlling the setup and equipment intended for this video, supposedly reserved for an unknown buyer. At this moment, Carole perceives no particular danger. The atmosphere remains as controlled as during their usual productions. Fontana sets up his equipment and indicates the expected positions, while Carole plays the desired scenario, with adhesive tape to gag her and a veil over her head. Official sources report that she thus finds herself tied up and completely vulnerable, believing she is following the specifications given to her, while relying on her neighbor, with whom she maintains an ambiguous relationship, both friendly, professional, and intimate. According to later reconstructions, the filming progresses until the precise moment when Fontana acts brutally. Experts appointed by the justice system observe that he grabs a hammer and delivers 13 successive blows to Carole's head before slitting her throat with a knife. Investigators quickly conclude that this is not an accident, but an intention to make her perish, reinforced by the fact that she has no possibility to defend herself. The investigation then reveals Fontana's behavior just after the homicide. He first remains for a long time in front of the body, himself described as paralyzed by what he has just done. Then, according to facts reported to the police, he proceeds to a particularly methodical stage of concealment. He takes the time to clean the apartment, eliminate the most visible traces, and gather what might alert the neighborhood. Quickly, he understands that he must make the body disappear more permanently. At this stage, he chooses a radical method. He segments the corpse into 18 distinct parts, a task that takes a considerable amount of time, and he ensures to pack each fragment to dispose of them without immediately attracting attention. During this operation, he realizes that the usual means are not enough, and that he needs specific equipment to preserve the remains. He then orders, via an online sales platform, a chest freezer that he installs in Carole's apartment. During this phase, investigators will later find that he also considers other scenarios to destroy what he has done. Some testimonies note an aborted attempt to burn part of the body on a barbecue, an idea he eventually abandons due to the magnitude of the task. Finally, he stores all the segments in the newly purchased freezer, allowing days to pass without anyone noticing the disappearance of the young woman. From the outside, Carole simply seems less available, but several people still receive messages supposedly from her. Fontana indeed uses the victim's phone to respond to various contacts, family or friends accustomed to this style of communications, and maintains the illusion that she continues her content creation activity and that she regularly travels outside of Italy, notably to Dubai. He also pays her rents on her behalf, removes any possibility of direct voice contact, and only engages in text exchanges, which, over a little more than 2 months, avoids raising urgent suspicions. For about 69 days, Fontana thus manipulates Carole's digital presence. Judges point out that he manages to create the illusion of her survival through this staging, fueling confusion among those who know her and wish to see or speak to her directly. Meanwhile, he prepares the logistical movement of the body. The crucial point comes when he decides to act and get rid of it far from Rescaldina. According to geolocation traces and various surveillance cameras, Fontana loads one by one the bags containing the frozen fragments into the trunk of his vehicle. Then he leaves the urban area towards a mountainous sector in the province of Brescia, more precisely near Borno. He searches for a steep and isolated spot, probably with the idea that the bags will remain concealed or will only be discovered after a long time. He gets out of the car not far from a small parking lot by the road, chooses a slope out of sight, and throws all the black bags with the hope that they will blend into the rugged environment. He then leaves thinking he has erased all material evidence linking Carole to him. However, weeks later, a passerby notices the suspicious presence of these bags and alerts the police. This man does not like to leave garbage in a natural area, so he wonders if these bags might contain trash or something dangerous. Upon getting closer, he realizes that the shape and weight of some packages seem far too unusual for simple waste. Law enforcement moves in and discovers that they are human remains. The case immediately transitions into a large-scale criminal investigation, as everything suggests a planned act rather than an improvised abandonment. The analysis shows that this is not a disappearance of a few days, but a prolonged storage and a deep staging involving freezing equipment. When questioned about his motivations, Fontana declares that he felt abandoned or manipulated by Carole. He expresses the idea that he couldn't accept her looking elsewhere, particularly in another part of Italy, to be closer to her son, and that he felt rejected. The judges emphasize that the hypothesis of a mere accident appears to be refuted by the meticulousness of the plan, the fake filming order, the purchase of the freezer, and the long simulation period intended to maintain the illusion that she was still alive. Analysts believe this violence stems from a sense of possession and a desire to deprive Carole of the freedom she enjoyed to manage her life her own way. So the investigation ultimately brings together all these pieces to demonstrate a concerted staging, from the apparent video order to the transport of the body to the Borno area, through the 69-day digital concealment period. When Fontana acknowledges the facts before the Carabinieri and explains his version, he admits he was also trying to protect himself legally by making it seem like Carole continued her activity elsewhere. Thus ends the chilling chronology of that January night and the multiple maneuvers that followed, gradually revealed by police investigations and the confessions of the individual concerned. On June 12, 2023, the first trial concludes in front of the Assize Court of Busto Arsizio. The magistrates render their decision and sentence Davide Fontana to 30 years in prison for voluntary homicide, destruction, and concealment of a corpse. The judges then examine all the incriminating elements, taking into account how he acted and the circumstances surrounding the case. However, they dismiss the aggravating circumstances of premeditation, cruelty, and motives considered particularly heinous or trivial. This position means they recognize his full responsibility for Carole's death, but they believe there is not enough evidence to qualify his action as premeditated or bearing an exceptional cruelty. At the announcement of this verdict, Carole's relatives react with indignation. Her father, Fabio Maltesi, her aunt Anna, and the young woman's former partner speak to local and national media, highlighting their incomprehension regarding the absence of ergastolo, the life imprisonment sentence provided by Italian law for murders deemed more severe. They point out the fact that the accused kept Carole's body for an extended period, gave the impression that she was still alive, and maintained multiple lies. For the family, this set of elements constitutes a form of brutality that should have led to a harsher penalty. At this point, the case goes on appeal and reaches the Court of Appeals of Milan in February 2024. The main issue of the second trial is to assess the severity of the elements gathered against Davide Fontana and to decide on the aggravating circumstances, which can directly affect the level of the sentence. The three magistrates and the jurors in charge of this second examination decide to increase the sentence, estimating that premeditation is finally an integral part of the crime's dynamics. At the end of this appeal trial, Fontana is sentenced to ergastolo, synonymous with life imprisonment in Italy. His defense team immediately files an appeal in cassation, contesting the interpretation that leads to considering the acts as premeditated. Meta, pause. Sex 1.0. In September 2024, the Court of Cassation examines this appeal and partially annuls the appeal ruling. It does not challenge Davide Fontana's guilt, but orders a new examination of the degree of premeditation to verify if the crime was planned long in advance or if it resulted from a more immediate impulse. The highest Italian judicial body then assigns the case to another section of the Milan Court of Appeals, with the mission of reassessing the possible presence of aggravating or mitigating circumstances that could alter the final sentence. Following this additional instruction, on May 15, 2025, the new formation of the Court of Appeals finally confirms the ergastolo. The magistrates then determined that the elaboration of the scenario around Carole, the fake client, the anticipated purchase of equipment, and the preservation of the body over an extended period are compelling evidence of prior organization. In their conclusions, they believe that this is not a simple slip-up, but rather a deliberate and meticulously orchestrated act. This confirmation of life imprisonment is drawing intense attention from the press and the public, especially since Davide Fontana is simultaneously benefiting from a restorative justice process. This mechanism, existing in certain judicial systems, theoretically aims to encourage the offender's awareness and accountability, often through supervised encounters or various forms of dialogue. Carole's family is outraged by this possibility, emphasizing that it seems incompatible with the extreme severity of what they describe as femicide. This case therefore becomes a new starting point for a national debate on the conditions of access to these programs for inmates convicted of similar acts. In November 2025, Davide Fontana, now in his 40s, addresses the Court of Cassation once again. He files a final appeal in an attempt to overturn the premeditation charge, which he considers excessive. By removing this aspect, he hopes to escape life imprisonment and see his sentence reduced, as during the first trial before the Court of Assizes of Busto Arsizio. Meanwhile, he remains incarcerated under the ergastolo regime, awaiting the High Court's decision. At this moment, attention turns towards the next steps in the procedure and the position the Court of Cassation will take on this case, which has already seen several twists. As it stands, the appellate judges consider that all available evidence demonstrates Davide Fontana's total responsibility, as well as the premeditation he seeks to contest. Observers and Carole's relatives are closely following the expected outcome, aware that each judicial step involves a meticulous interpretation of the evidence and circumstances. For now, the most severe sanction of the Italian penal system remains in place, and the case continues to engage the justice system, the press, and public opinion regarding the penal treatment of crimes against women.